Hey guys, tonight we're going to slow things down and sit with a story that matters. Marcus Tate, a black federal prosecutor in his 50s, carries the weight of his late mother's legacy in his heart, a modest Augusta home now threatened by an unjust tax hike. In a faded Georgia courthouse, he faces more than bureaucracy. He confronts a system that judges him before he speaks. With quiet strength, Marcus steps into a battle for fairness, his resolve a beacon against prejudice. Before we begin, please like the video and subscribe, but only if stories like this truly move you. Comment your city and the time you were watching. Now close your eyes or don't, it's your choice. Either way, you're about to witness something real. The Augusta morning hums with a restless heat, the kind that clings to the skin and sharpens the edges of every thought. Marcus Tate steps out of his black sedan, his polished shoes clicking against the asphalt of the municipal courthouse parking lot. Dawn's light spills over the city, painting long shadows that stretch like silent accusations across the ground. His navy suit, crisp despite the humidity, fits him like a second skin, a shield forged from years of discipline. At 53, Marcus carries the gravitas of a federal prosecutor, his broad shoulders squared, his dark eyes scanning the horizon with a quiet intensity. But today, his jaw is tight, his pulse a fraction faster than usual. An urgent case, a trafficking ring unraveling in Savannah, kept him on the phone until 2 a.m., and now he's running late. Not by much, but enough to gnaw at him. Marcus doesn't do late. He clutches a leather briefcase, its worn handle a familiar anchor. Inside are documents meticulously gathered to contest a tax hike on his mother's house, a small brick home on Laney Street, where he learned to tie his tie to pray to stand tall. The city's assessment spiked without warning, a 40% jump that smells of clerical error or worse. To Marcus, the house is more than property. It's a tether to his mother, Evelyn, whose laughter still echoes in its walls. Losing it would be like losing her again. He exhales, pushing the thought aside. Facts are his weapon, and he's armed with them. The courthouse looms ahead, its beige facade chipped and weary, a relic of Augusta's bureaucratic heart. Marcus climbs the steps, his stride deliberate, though his watch reads 8:47 a.m., 13 minutes to his hearing. His phone buzzes in his pocket, a text from his assistant. Lena, Judge Grayson's a stickler for punctuality. Tread carefully. Marcus's lips press into a thin line. He's faced judges like Grayson before, men who wield gavels like scepters, their authority a wall against reason. But he's not here to bow. He's here to fight. Inside, the air is stale thick with the scent of old coffee and worn paper. The lobby buzzes with low voices, plaintiffs clutching folders, attorneys whispering strategy, a janitor sweeping dust into corners. Marcus navigates the crowd, his height cutting a path through the chaos. Signs point to room 107, where Judge Harold Grayson presides. He finds the courtroom, its oak door heavy under his hand, and slips inside. The room is half full, a mix of tired faces and nervous energy. Wooden benches creak under the weight of the spectators, their eyes darting between phones and the empty judge's bench. Marcus takes a seat near the back, his briefcase on his lap, and opens it to review his papers. Tax assessments, property records, emails with city officials. They're all there, neat and irrefutable. The clock ticks to 8:55 a.m. When the bailiff's voice cuts through the hum, all rise. The room shuffles to its feet as Judge Harold Grayson enters, a wiry man in his 60s with a shock of white hair and eyes like chipped ice. His black robe swirls as he ascends the bench, his presence sucking the air from the room. Marcus studies him, noting the way Grayson's gaze sweeps the crowd, lingering on some faces longer than others. There's a hardness there, a calculation Marcus recognizes from years in courtrooms. Some truths linger, waiting to be unveiled. Grayson begins calling cases with mechanical precision, his voice sharp and clipped. A woman contests a parking ticket. A man disputes a zoning fine. Each case is dispatched with a nair or a gavel's tap, no warmth, no pause. Marcus watches a young white man in a rumpled blazer slip in late, taking a seat without so much as a glance from Grayson. A white woman in jeans arrives moments later, her footsteps loud in the quiet room. Grayson doesn't blink. Marcus's fingers tighten on his pen, a faint prickle of unease settling in his chest. At 9:10 a.m., his name is called, Marcus Tate. He rises, smoothing his tie, and approaches the podium. The room shifts, eyes following him, some curious, some indifferent. Grayson looks up, his expression hardening, a subtle curl to his lip. Marcus feels the weight of that gaze heavy with something unspoken. "You're late, Mr. Tate," Grayson says, his voice a blade. "This court values time, do you not?" Marcus's pulse spikes, but his face remains calm, his voice steady. "Your Honor, I apologize. I was delayed by urgent federal matters, but I'm prepared to present my case." Grayson's eyes narrow, unyielding. "Excuses don't hold here. Your tardiness disrespects this court." The words land like a slap and murmurs ripple through the room. Marcus stands taller, his hands clasped behind his back, but inside his mind races. He glances at the latecomers, the blazer, the jeans untouched by Grayson's wrath. The disparity is stark, a pattern he's seen too often. "Your Honor," Marcus begins, his tone measured. "I'm here about a property tax adjustment on my family's home. The city's assessment is erroneous, and I have evidence." Grayson cuts him off with a raised hand. "We'll address your case after the matter of contempt. Tardiness undermines justice. You're fined $900. The gavel falls, a sharp crack that echoes in Marcus's ears. His jaw tightens, a quiet tremor in his chest, but he nods. "Understood, Your Honor." He steps back, his eyes never leaving Grayson's. The judge moves on, calling the next case, but Marcus's mind is elsewhere, cataloging every glance, every word. This isn't just a fine, it's a message. He returns to his seat, his briefcase a grounding weight on his lap. The courtroom hums, but Marcus is silent, his pen moving swiftly across a notepad. He jots down the latecomers' descriptions, Grayson's tone, the room's reactions. His mother's voice echoes in his mind. "Stand tall, Marcus, even when they try to cut you down." He clenches his hands but holds his silence, a quiet strength coiling within him. The fine stings, but it's the injustice that burns a fire he won't let die. Around him, the courtroom carries on, oblivious to the shift in Marcus Tate. He's not just a prosecutor today. He's a witness to something deeper, something he can't unsee. The hour drags on Grayson's rulings, a steady drumbeat. Marcus watches, his anger tempered by focus. A black woman, maybe 40, presents a case about a utility bill. Grayson interrupts her, twice his tone sharp. A white man with a similar dispute speaks uninterrupted, his fine reduced with a nod. Marcus's pen pauses, his breath slow and deliberate. He's seen this before in depositions and case files, in the stories his mother told of her own battles in Augusta's segregated past. But here in this faded courtroom, it's raw, unfiltered. He writes disparity, selective enforcement, racial. The words are a vow, a map to what comes next. As the session nears its end, Marcus closes his notepad, his resolve a quiet flame. He stands, briefcase in hand, and steps into the aisle. A few eyes follow him. An older black man nods faintly, his expression knowing. A young woman in the corner scribbles in a notebook, her face alight with curiosity. Marcus doesn't linger. He moves toward the door, the weight of the morning settling into his bones. Outside, Augusta's heat waits, but so does his next move. He's not done here. Not by a long shot. The Augusta courthouse hallway stretches long and dim, its fluorescent lights casting a sterile glow that does little to warm the chipped linoleum floor. Marcus Tate stands near a water fountain, his briefcase resting against his leg, his notepad open in his hands. The $900 fine burns in his mind, not for its cost, but for its intent, a jab meant to diminish, to silence. At 53, Marcus has faced prejudice before in courtrooms and boardrooms, but today's sting is sharper, laced with the weight of his mother's house, her memory, her fight. He scribbles another note. Grayson's tone, hostile only to me. His pen moves with precision, each word a tether to his resolve. The air smells of dust and bureaucracy, and the distant hum of voices from room 107 spills into the corridor, a reminder that the morning session trudges on. Marcus's phone vibrates, pulling him from his thoughts. It's Lena again, her text urgent. "Heard about the fine? You okay?" He types a quicker reply, "I'm fine," digging deeper, and pockets the phone while his dark eyes scan the hallway, catching the shuffle of a clerk carrying files, the slouch of a defendant waiting for a hearing. He's not just a prosecutor now. He's a witness piecing together a pattern that's as old as the courthouse itself. His mother's voice hums in his mind. "Stand tall, Marcus, even when they try to cut you down." It's a motif that grounds him, a quiet mantra against the chaos. Back in room 107, Marcus re-enters his stride, measured, his navy suit a stark contrast to the room's faded beige. The courtroom is fuller now, the bench is creaking under new arrivals. Judge Harold Grayson sits high on his bench, his white hair catching the light like a crown, his icy eyes scanning the crowd. Marcus takes his seat, his notepad discreetly open, his pen ready. Grayson calls the next case a black woman in her 30s named Tanya Harris contesting a noise violation. Her voice trembles as she explains a neighbor's complaint, a misunderstanding, but Grayson cuts her off. Speak clearly, Ms. Harris. This isn't a debate. Tanya's shoulders sag, her eyes dropping to the podium. Marcus's pen scratches. Interruption. Dismissive. Minutes later, a white man in his 40s, unshaven and wearing a polo shirt, steps up for a similar violation. He rambles, his story muddled, but Grayson leans forward, nodding. Sounds like a mix-up. Pay $50 and we're done. The man grins relieved, and Marcus's grip on his pen tightens. The disparity is blatant, a thread in a tapestry of bias he's seen woven through Augusta's history, redlining school segregation, and now this courtroom. He writes, selective leniency, race. His pulse quickens, but his face remains a mask of calm, his silence a coiled strength. Grayson's voice booms again. Marcus Tate. Marcus rises, his briefcase in hand, and approaches the podium. The room quiets, a subtle tension rippling through the spectators. Grayson's eyes lock onto him, hard and unyielding. Your tax case, Mr. Tate. Make it quick. Marcus opens his folder, spreading documents across the podium. Tax assessments, property deeds, emails with city officials. Your Honor, the city raised my family's property tax by 40% without justification. This house has been in my family for 60 years. Here's the original assessment, unchanged for a decade, and the new notice with no explanation. Grayson barely glances at the papers, his lips curling. Your time's worthless here, Mr. Tate, and so is your excuse for wasting mine. The fine stands and your case is under review. The words are a slap, and Marcus feels the eyes of the room on him, some curious, some sympathetic, some gleeful. A white woman in the front row whispers to her neighbor, her smirk barely hidden. Marcus's chest tightens, a quiet tremor of anger, but he holds his ground. Your Honor, I request clarification. Are fines for tardiness applied equally here? His voice is steady, a blade wrapped in velvet. Grayson's gavel slams down, the sound sharp enough to make a spectator flinch. You're out of line, Mr. Tate. Question this court again and you'll regret it. The judge's face reddens, his authority a wall Marcus can feel pressing against him. Marcus nods, his expression unreadable, and steps back. Thank you, Your Honor. He returns to his seat, his notepad filling with observations. Hostility, unequal fines, public humiliation. The courtroom resumes its rhythm, but Marcus's mind is a storm calculating, planning. Some truths linger, waiting to be unveiled. The session drags on, each case a mirror of the last. A black man, maybe 50, contests a traffic fine. Grayson interrupts, his tone biting. A white woman with a similar case speaks freely, her fine waved with a smile. Marcus's pen moves faster now, his notes a growing indictment. He catches the eye of an older black woman, 2 rows ahead, her nods subtle but heavy with understanding. She's seen this too, lived it, carried it. Marcus's resolve hardens, a quiet flame fed by every glance, every word. He's not just fighting for his mother's house anymore. This is bigger, deeper, a wound in Augusta's soul. As noon approaches the courtroom, thin spectators drifting out. Marcus lingers, watching Grayson confer with the bailiff, a stocky man named Clarence with a weary face. Clarence's eyes meet Marcus's for a moment, a flicker of something, guilt, maybe, or recognition, before he looks away. Marcus closes his notepad, his fingers brushing the leather of his briefcase. The fine, the dismissal, the bias, they're not just personal now, they're evidence. He stands, his shadow stretching across the bench, and moves toward the door. A young black man in the back row watches him, his expression a mix of awe and defiance. Marcus doesn't acknowledge it, but he feels it, a current running through the room. Outside, the Augusta sun is high, the heat pressing against his skin. Marcus pauses on the courthouse steps, his briefcase heavy in his hand. His phone buzzes again, Lena this time with a call. Marcus, what happened in there? Her voice is sharp with worry. Grayson's got a reputation, but this is next level. Marcus exhales, his gaze fixed on the city skyline. It's not just me, Lena. It's a pattern. I'm not letting this go. He hangs up, his mind already mapping the next steps. He's seen enough to know this isn't a one-off. It's systemic, rooted in the bones of this place. Marcus opens his notepad and again flipping to a fresh page. He writes witnesses, records, disparities. His mother's voice echoes softer now, but no less firm. Stand tall, Marcus. He will, not just for her, but for Tanya Harris, for the man with the traffic fine, for every face in that courtroom who felt Grayson's scorn. The hallway behind him hums with the courthouse's pulse, but Marcus is already elsewhere, his focus narrowing to a single point. He's a prosecutor trained to build cases to seek justice. And this is a case he won't lose. The Augusta courthouse sits quiet now. Its hallways emptied of the morning's clamor, but the weight of what Marcus Tate witnessed lingers like dust in the air. He stands outside leaning against a concrete pillar, the midday sun carving sharp angles across his navy suit. His notepad rests open in his hands, pages filled with meticulous observations. Grayson's selective scorn, the unequal fines, the unspoken rules that shift, depending on who stands before the bench. At 53, Marcus has seen bias before woven into the fabric of courtrooms and communities, but today's raw clarity sharpens his resolve. His mother's house, the tax hike, the $900 fine, they are no longer just personal battles. They're threads in a larger tapestry, one he's determined to unravel. His fingers trace the edge of his briefcase, its worn leather, a steadying presence, a reminder of the fights he's won and the one he's about to wage. Marcus's phone buzzes a call from his colleague Jamal, a fellow prosecutor with a knack for digging up public records. Lena filled me in, Jamal says, his voice low. Grayson's got a history complaints, whispers nothing solid. You sure you want to poke this bear? Marcus's jaw tightens, his eyes fixed on the courthouse's chipped facade. It's not about wanting Jamal. It's about what's right. He hangs up, his mind racing. His mother's voice hums a quiet echo. Stand tall, Marcus, even when they try to cut you down. It's a motif that binds him to this moment, a thread through the chaos. He re-enters the courthouse, the air cooler now tinged with the faint scent of polish and old wood. The clerk's office is his destination, a cramped room where a middle-aged woman named Ruth sits behind a counter, her glasses perched low on her nose. Marcus approaches his badge, discreetly visible in his hand. Good afternoon, Ms. Ruth, he says, his voice warm but firm. I need access to municipal court records, fines rulings last 5 years. Ruth's eyes flicker with recognition, then hesitation. That's a lot of paperwork, Mr. Tate. Takes time. Marcus leans in slightly, his gaze steady. I've got time. Justice doesn't rush, but it doesn't wait either. Ruth nods, a faint tremor in her hands as she jots down his request. Marcus's pen scratches in his notepad. Clerk, nervous, knows something. Back in his car, Marcus opens his laptop, pulling up case files. Jamal sent public records of Grayson's rulings. The numbers tell a story. Black defendants fined 70% more on average than white defendants for similar infractions. Late arrivals like Marcus face penalties when black, but warnings when white. His pulse quickens, a quiet anger coiling in his chest, but he channels it into focus. He writes, systemic, documented, actionable. The injustice isn't just in room 107. It's in the data, the patterns, the silence of those who've seen it and said nothing. Marcus's fingers pause, his eyes drifting to a photo on his dashboard, his mother Evelyn smiling in her Sunday hat. Her memory is a fire urging him forward. He drives to a small diner on Broad Street, a place where Augusta's legal crowd gathers over coffee and grease. The air smells of bacon and syrup, and the jukebox hums a low blues tune. Marcus slides into a booth, his briefcase beside him, and orders coffee, black, no sugar. Across the room, he spots Clarence, the bailiff from Grayson's courtroom, sitting alone, his face weary. Marcus approaches his stride, casual but purposeful. Mind if I join you, Clarence? The bailiff looks up, startled, then nods. Marcus sits, his voice low. I saw what happened today. You've been in that room a long time. Ever notice how Grayson picks his targets? Clarence's eyes dart to his coffee, his fingers tightening around the mug. I see things, he mutters. Don't mean I can change them. Marcus leans forward, his tone steady. You don't have to change it alone. Just tell me what you've seen. Clarence hesitates, then nods faintly. Marcus's notepad fills. Bailiff witness. Conflicted. The diner's hum fades as Marcus listens. Clarence speaks in fragments, stories of black defendants, humiliated fines doubled for minor offenses, Grayson's impatience with anyone who doesn't fit his mold. Marcus's anger simmers, but his face remains calm, his silence a quiet strength. He thinks of Tanya Harris, the woman from the morning session, her voice trembling under Grayson's scorn. He thinks of the older black woman who nodded to him, her eyes heavy with shared history. Augusta's past, its segregated schools, its redlined neighborhoods, lives in this courtroom, and Marcus feels its weight. Some truths linger, waiting to be unveiled. Back at his office, a modest space in downtown Augusta, Marcus spreads case files across his desk. The fluorescent lights buzz faintly, casting long shadows. Lena stops by, her arms crossed, her brow furrowed. "You're stirring a hornet's nest, Marcus. Grayson's connected old money, old power." Marcus looks up, his eyes sharp. "Power doesn't scare me, Lena. Injustice does." She sighs, then hands him a USB drive. "Court transcripts last 2 years. Jamal pulled his strings." Marcus nods, his gratitude unspoken but clear. He plugs in the drive, scanning documents late into the evening. The patterns grow clearer. Grayson's fines, his interruptions, his leniency skewed by race. Marcus's pen moves. Evidence mounting. Need witnesses. He steps outside for air, the Augusta night, thick with humidity. The city's skyline glows faintly, a mix of old brick and new glass. Marcus's phone buzzes, a text from an unknown number. "I was in court today. Saw what Grayson did. I'm a law student. Can we talk?" Marcus's lips curve faintly, a spark of hope. He replies, "Tomorrow, 10 a.m., Broad Street Diner." He pockets the phone, his gaze lifting to the stars. His mother's house, her legacy is at stake, but so is something bigger: justice, fairness, the right to be seen. He clenches his hands but holds his silence, his resolve a quiet flame. The next morning, Marcus meets the law student, a young black woman named Aisha, at the diner. Her notebook is open, her eyes bright with determination. "I've been in Grayson's courtroom before," she says, her voice low. "It's always the same. Black folks get hit harder every time." Marcus listens, his coffee untouched, his notepad filling. Aisha's stories mirror his own observations. Defendants dismissed, fines inflated, Grayson's gavel a weapon. Marcus's chest tightens, a mix of pride and pain. Aisha's courage, her clarity, reminds him of himself at her age, fighting for a seat at the table. He writes, "Witness credible, young, fearless." As they part, Aisha hesitates, then speaks. "Why do you do this, Mr. Tate? You could walk away." Marcus looks at her, his voice soft but firm. "Because someone has to stand tall, Aisha. For my mother, for you, for all of us." She nods, her eyes shining, and Marcus feels the weight of her trust. He steps into the street, the Augusta sun rising higher, its heat a mirror to the fire in his chest. Grayson's courtroom is a battleground, and Marcus is ready. His notepad, his badge, his mother's memory, they're his arsenal, and he's just begun to fight. The Augusta courthouse hums with a restless energy, its hallways narrower now under the weight of late morning light. Marcus Tate stands at the edge of room 107, his navy suit crisp, his briefcase a steady anchor by his side. At 53, he carries the scars of battles fought in courtrooms and beyond, but today his dark eyes burn with a quiet fire. The 900 fine, the tax dispute, the patterns of bias, they have led him here to this moment. His notepad tucked inside his jacket holds a litany of truths. Grayson's selective wrath, the skewed fines, the voices of Clarence, Aisha, and others who've dared to speak. Marcus's resolve is a steel thread woven through the chaos of Augusta's history and his own. His mother's voice soft but unyielding echoes. "Stand tall, Marcus, even when they try to cut you down." It's a refrain that steadies him, a motif binding him to the fight. Inside, the courtroom is fuller than before, the benches creaking under a mix of spectators, lawyers, locals, a few reporters sniffing out a story. Judge Harold Grayson sits high on his bench, his white hair stark against the oak paneling, his icy eyes scanning the room with practiced authority. Marcus slips into a seat near the back, his presence unnoticed for now. Grayson calls cases with his usual clipped precision, but there's a tightness in his jaw. A flicker of unease Marcus catches. The judge knows something's brewing, whispers of complaints, maybe, or the weight of his own history. Marcus's pen rests in his hand, his notepad ready, but he's not writing now, he's waiting. The morning drags, each case a mirror of the patterns Marcus has documented. A black man in his 20s, nervous in a borrowed suit, contests a loitering fine. Grayson interrupts his tone, sharp. You expect me to believe that story? The fine doubles. A white woman, late for her parking dispute, speaks freely, her penalty waived with a nod. Marcus's chest tightens, a quiet anger coiling, but his face remains calm, his silence a shield. He glances at Aisha, the law student seated 2 rows ahead, her notebook open, her pen moving furiously. Their eyes meet briefly, a shared understanding passing between them. Some truths linger, waiting to be unveiled. At 11:15 a.m., Grayson's voice cuts through the room. Marcus Tate. The air shifts, heads turning as Marcus rises his stride, deliberate, his briefcase in hand. The spectators' murmurs fade, a hush settling like dust. Grayson's eyes lock onto him, hard and unyielding, but there's a crack in his composure, a slight tightening of his lips. Marcus reaches the podium, his documents untouched for now. He stands tall, his shoulders squared, his voice steady. Your Honor, I'd like to address the fine and my case, but first a matter of procedure. Grayson's brow furrows, his gavel twitching in his hand. Tread carefully, Mr. Tate. This court doesn't tolerate games. Marcus's pulse is steady, his resolve a quiet flame. He reaches into his jacket, pulling out his federal badge, its gold emblem catching the courtroom's dim light. He holds it up, his voice clear, unwavering. I'm Marcus Tate, Assistant U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of Georgia. I've served for 17 years prosecuting corruption, trafficking, and civil rights violations. I was late yesterday due to a federal case, but that's not the issue here. The room gasps a collective intake of breath. Grayson's face pales, his hands freezing over his papers. Marcus continues, his tone calm but piercing. The issue is fairness. I've documented disparities in this courtroom. Fines, rulings, treatment based on race. As an officer of the court, I'm obligated to report what I've seen. The silence is deafening, the air thick with shock. Aisha's pen stops, her eyes wide with awe. Clarence the bailiff shifts uncomfortably, his gaze dropping to the floor. A white woman in the front row, the one who smirked yesterday, stares open-mouthed. Grayson leans forward, his voice tight. You're accusing this court of misconduct, Mr. Tate? Marcus meets his gaze, unflinching. I'm stating facts, Your Honor. Black defendants face higher fines, harsher treatment. The records speak for themselves, and I've already begun sharing them. He places his badge on the podium, a deliberate act, its weight echoing in the room. Grayson's gavel trembles, but he doesn't strike. This is out of order, he says, his voice thinner now, his authority fraying. Marcus's voice softens, but its edge remains. Justice is never out of order. Your Honor, it's why I'm here, for my mother's house, for every person in this room, for fairness. He steps back, his badge still on the podium, a silent challenge. The courtroom erupts in whispers, heads craning, phones discreetly raised to capture the moment. Marcus returns to his seat, his heart steady, his silence a quiet strength. He's lit a match, and the fire is spreading. Grayson clears his throat, calling the next case, but his rhythm is off, his voice strained. Marcus watches his notepad open again, his pen moving. Confrontation. Grayson rattled. Witnesses present. The judge's eyes dart to him, a flicker of fear beneath the ice. Marcus feels the room's energy shift, spectators leaning forward. Aisha's face alight with hope, Clarence's hands fidgeting. Outside, Augusta's sun climbs higher, its heat pressing against the courthouse windows, but inside the air is electric. Marcus's phone buzzes, Lena texting. You did what? Call me now. He ignores it, his focus razor sharp. The session ends abruptly, Grayson adjourning early, his robe swirling as he exits. Spectators linger, their voices a low hum of shock and speculation. Aisha approaches Marcus, her notebook clutched to her chest. That was incredible, she says, her voice trembling with excitement. What happens next? Marcus's lips curve faintly, a rare smile. We keep pushing, Aisha. Truth doesn't stop. She nods, her resolve mirroring his own. Clarence passes by, his eyes meeting Marcus's for a moment, a silent acknowledgement before he disappears into the hallway. Marcus steps outside, the Augusta air thick with humidity. His briefcase feels lighter now, his badge back in his pocket, its weight a reminder of the line he's crossed. He opens his notepad, adding, public reaction, momentum building. His mother's voice hums softer now. Stand tall, Marcus. He has, and the courthouse feels different, smaller, less invincible. He pulls out his phone, dialing Jamal. "It's done," Marcus says, his voice low. "I called it out. Get ready for the fallout." Jamal's laugh is sharp, nervous. "Man, you don't play small. I'm pulling more records." "This is big." Marcus hangs up his gaze, lifting to the city skyline, its mix of old brick and new glass a mirror to Augusta's contradictions. As he walks to his car, a young black man from the courtroom catches up, his eyes bright. "I saw what you did, Mr. Tate. Thank you." Marcus nods, his expression softening. "Keep watching. This isn't over." The man smiles, a spark of hope in his face, and Marcus feels it too, a current running through Augusta through him. The fire he's lit will burn, and Grayson's courtroom, its biases, its walls will face the heat. Marcus's resolve is unshaken, his path clear. He's not just a prosecutor now. He's a catalyst, and the truth is his weapon. The Augusta courthouse stands bathed in the soft glow of a late afternoon sun, its chipped facade softened by long shadows that stretch across the steps. Marcus Tate walks slowly down Broad Street, his navy suit slightly rumpled, now his briefcase swinging lightly at his side. At 53, he carries the weight of the past weeks with a quiet grace, his dark eyes reflecting both exhaustion and a hard-won peace. The confrontation in room 107, the badge on the podium, the stunned silence. It's all rippled outward, reshaping Augusta's heart. His notepad tucked in his jacket holds the final pieces of a case that's become bigger than him, bigger than his mother's house. Evelyn's voice, a gentle hum, weaves through his thoughts. "Stand tall, Marcus, even when they try to cut you down." It's a motif that's carried him through a thread of dignity in a city scarred by division. Weeks have passed since Marcus's stand, and the courthouse feels different. Its air lighter, its walls less oppressive. Judge Harold Grayson is gone, his resignation announced in a curt statement to the press. "To serve the community's best interests, I step aside." The words were hollow, a shield against the damning evidence Marcus and others unearthed. Court records, Clarence's testimony, Ruth's hesitant admissions, Aisha's meticulous notes. They painted a picture of systemic bias, undeniable and raw. Black defendants fined triple the rates of white ones, interruptions reserved for those who didn't fit leniency, a privilege skewed by race. The Judicial Review Board descended on Augusta. Their report, a thunderclap: reforms, mandated oversight committees formed, bias training required. Grayson's name, once a pillar of local power, now carries a stain, whispered in diners and barbershops, with a mix of scorn and relief. Marcus stops at the diner on Broad Street, its jukebox humming a low blues tune, the scent of coffee and grease, a familiar comfort. He slides into a booth, his briefcase beside him, and orders coffee black, no sugar. Across the room, Clarence sits with a group of bailiffs, his face less weary, now his laughter a rare sound. He catches Marcus's eye and nods a silent thank you. Marcus returns it, his lips curving faintly. Clarence has joined the reform effort, leading training sessions for court staff, his voice steady as he tells new hires, dignity's not optional. You see wrong, you speak. Ruth, too, has changed, promoted to oversee the ethical practices, her once trembling hands now steady as she mentors clerks. Augusta's courthouse is rebuilding brick by brick, and Marcus feels its pulse in his own. His phone buzzes a text from Aisha, now interning at a civil rights clinic inspired by Marcus's fight. "Spoke at a rally today. Cited your case. People listened." Marcus's chest warms, a quiet pride mingling with the ache of responsibility. He replies, "Keep speaking, Aisha. You're the future." He leans back, his coffee untouched, and thinks of the others who've reached out. An elderly black woman from the courtroom, her voice thick with gratitude. "I've seen injustice for 60 years, Mr. Tate. You gave me hope." A young public defender in Atlanta inspired to audit her own court's records. Their stories, their voices are the true victory, not Grayson's fall, but the rising of those who'd been silenced. The diner's door swings open and Lena steps in, her eyes sharp but softened by a smile. "You're a hard man to track down, Marcus," she says, sliding into the booth. "The review board's report is national news now. They're calling you a catalyst." Marcus shrugs his gaze, drifting to the window where Augusta's skyline glows against a fading sky. "It's not about me, Lena. It's about what's right." She nods, her silence a shared understanding. They talk quietly about the reforms, the oversight committees, the law students organizing across Georgia. Lena hands him a newspaper clipping, its headline bold. Augusta court reforms signal new era. Marcus scans at his mother's memory, a soft presence. Her house, the tax dispute resolved in his favor, stands safe on Laney Street, a testament to her fight and his. Outside, Marcus walks toward the courthouse, drawn to its steps one last time. The air is cooler now, the humidity easing as dusk settles. He pauses his briefcase at his feet and looks up at the building. A new sign hangs near the entrance, small but clear. Equal justice for all. It's a start, not a finish, and Marcus knows the road ahead is long. Reforms falter without vigilance. Bias creeps back without voices to call it out. But for now, Augusta breathes easier, its people a little taller. Marcus's stand has sparked something, a current of courage, a demand for dignity that ripples beyond these steps, beyond Georgia, into courtrooms and communities he'll never see. He thinks of his mother, Evelyn, her Sunday hat tilted just so her laughter filling the Laney Street house. She'd fought her own battles against redlining, against whispers that her place wasn't hers to claim. Marcus fought for her, but also for Tanya Harris, for the young man in the borrowed suit, for every face in room 107 who felt Grayson's scorn. In a nation built on second chances, justice isn't a gift. It's a right earned through quiet strength and unrelenting truth. Marcus's fight wasn't loud, but it was deep, its echoes, carrying the weight of those who came before and those who will follow. His phone buzzes again, a call from Jamal. His voice bright. Marcus, they're naming a legal clinic after you? Law student is man. They're fired up. Marcus chuckles a rare sound and shakes his head. Tell them to name it after justice, not me. He hangs up his gaze, lifting to the stars now dotting Augusta's sky. The courthouse behind him stands silent. Its walls no longer a fortress of bias, but a place of possibility. Marcus picks up his briefcase, its leather-worn but strong, and walks into the night. His mother's voice hums a final note. Stand tall, Marcus. He has, and in doing so, he's lifted others with him.